Yes, it's that time again. Welcome back to another Old Mutual Wealth Coffee Chat with Tiaan Herselman, Head of Old Mutual Wealth Advice and Proposition, where in the time that it takes you to make your favorite cup of coffee, we're going to dispense some good, practical investment information that matters. Under the scope today is tax. There's only two things that are certain in life, Tiaan: death and taxes. We've spoken a lot about death around the benefits of having a beneficiary on an investment contract, and we're going to turn our sights to tax, particularly now that it's RA season. A lot of planners are gearing up for that in February, but not all investment vehicles are created equal. It actually depends on a whole lot of things. Give us some scope around that.
It's a great question, Dave, and we don't think that tax gets enough attention because it's boring. Who wants to talk about tax on investments? But when you look at investments, there's only three things that distinguish them. It's how can I access the money? How liquid is it? Can I get my money out tomorrow? The second thing is what can I invest into? And there are certain limits, and we've covered that in previous sections. But the third thing is how is my money going to be taxed? And we think way too much time is spent on markets. Is it local? Is it offshore? Emerging, passive, active, which managers? When we don't talk about the most boring, but probably one of the most important things being tax. Now, why is tax important? Well, because if you look at any investment, whether it's an endowment, it's a unit trust, it's a living annuity, a retirement annuity, tax-free savings account, generally speaking, there's 3 to 4 elements of tax that you are going to end up paying in some shape or form. You're going to pay tax on dividends, you're going to pay tax on interest, you're going to pay tax on capital gains, and you may pay tax on income. Now, you might say income and interest are the same thing, but there's a bit of a nuance. So let's look at the retirement or the investment landscape. Why people love retirement funds is when I look at those 4 taxes, I go, am I paying tax on dividends while I'm invested? No. Am I paying tax on capital gains? Nope. Paying tax on interest? No. Great. So whatever I invest in the retirement fund is going to grow into perpetuity. I'm not going to pay any of that tax, except for the fourth one, which is tax on income when I start drawing the income. Yes, I can take a lump sum and then there's retirement table tax, but generally speaking, the bulk of the money I'm going to pay income tax all the way into retirement. Discretionary investments, a bit different. If I've got a tax-free savings account, then I'm not going to pay any tax on interest, dividends, or capital gains. Let's park that. But if I have a unit trust, endowment, life-wrapped investment, I am going to pay a level of tax on capital gains, interest, and dividends. Now, what I need to weigh up is, do I pay the tax now on the discretionary investments, or do I defer the tax and wait till retirement? If I also take into account that not only does the retirement fund help me defer tax till later on, every rand I contribute today, up to certain limits, but every rand I contribute takes down my taxable income. So what does that mean? Well, Dave, you're doing very well at Old Mutual Wealth. You spent your entire career here, we are paying you a beautiful salary of 50,000 Rand a month. If you take 5,000, you put it into your pension fund. SARS says, Dave, you know what? For being such a diligent saver, I'm not going to tax you like you're earning 50,000. I'm going to tax you like you were earning 45. And then Tiaan comes along, newbie. I just want to spend my money, don't care about retirement. Because I don't put the 5,000 into a retirement fund, I'm taxed on the full 50,000. That's why tax is so important. And you've got to look at which option is the most important option for me.
So, Tiaan, such an interesting point there. It's not so much around tax deletion, it's around tax deferral. And people can get drunk on the tax savings immediately. What are the long-term aspects that you look at?
So what you've got to be careful for is RA seasons are around the corner. And you're going to get a WhatsApp or a message saying you should consider topping up your retirement fund. And in most cases, you should. It's such a great vehicle. Like I mentioned, no tax on interest, dividends, capital gains. Your investment will grow much, or it should, in theory, grow faster than discretionary investments if the portfolio is the same because you're not paying any tax. But there is a but. When you make the decision to put the money into your retirement fund, being your pension or your provident or your retirement annuity, over these other liquid investments, tax-free savings account, unit trust, endowment, you need to look at not just the tax you save or pay today, but the tax over your lifetime. Let me tell you why I say that. If you're young, I'd like to think like me, but let's say you're young, you're starting out your career, and now you are starting to accumulate from a young age, and you're getting tax back from SARS. That means all of those contributions are going to grow tax-free, and if you take the money back from SARS, put that into a TFSA, you are going to be smiling in retirement. But if you're a bit older, maybe you're 40 years old or 50 years old, you don't have all the benefit of the tax compounding. that you would get from somebody my age. And then you get to retirement, and maybe because you have other forms of income or you have other substantial assets that you might have, now you in a higher income tax bracket than the person in the discretionary investments, who's only paying tax on interest, dividends, and capital gains at a much lower rate than the person drawing the income. But then the question becomes, well, how do I know which one is best for me? Well, that's where we've spent an astronomical amount of time saying, how do we solve this conundrum? Well, we have something called synergy financial planning, which is where we take you, Dave, and we tell you, Dave, where do you want to be in the future? Where do you see yourself living? What's your living expenses, medical aid, capital goals? We do some type of an analysis of your lifestyle, and then we start looking at what's the most appropriate investment vehicle for you, not just looking at today and the tax you might save today, but the tax you might save over your lifetime. And it's actually changing the investment vehicles people look at today, taking a long-term view. And for some clients, we find that the retirement fund is absolutely applicable. If they take the money they get back from SARS or the monthly savings they get, and they put that away, or it means they can save more into a retirement fund versus a discretionary investment. But there are other clients who will be finding it's not as beneficial. So we say before you run and make that retirement fund contribution, which might be the right thing, make sure you've done a thorough cash flow analysis to make sure that you are in fact doing the right thing.
Now, at Old Mutual Wealth, Tiaan, we do everything by design, nothing by accident. And you've done some deep research with you and your team. And is it a one-size-fits-all scenario, or is it different circumstances, different clients require a different need?
So we did quite a deep dive on different clients. So we looked at clients age 30, 40, and 50, different income brackets all the way from 10,000 to 500,000. And we looked at a replacement ratio saying that I wanted to replace 60% of my current income as a net income in retirement, which is probably quite high. So in other words, you're earning 100,000. I want after tax in retirement 60,000. And then we looked at all of these different clients. We said, what are the most appropriate options? And we looked at two sets of clients, and I'm trying to simplify a very technical study that we did. And we said we looked at two sets of clients that have employer retirement funds and clients that don't have employer retirement funds that are contributing to retirement funds. And without going into the detail, because we can publish that or we can happy to elaborate on more detail, but the fundamental things we found, again, the only question we asked is what vehicle would sustain your desired after-tax income the longest before you hit a 17.5% limit or before you ran out of money. Because in discretionary money, you'd actually run out. In retirement funds, there might be a point where you get to the 17.5% limit after retirement. Now, to simplify all of that, there was a couple of key things we found. We found that it's a no-brainer for young people to invest into retirement funds, specifically if you're also taking the money you get back from SARS and reinvesting. We did find that for most middle income earning clients in their 40s, it was a combination of retirement annuity and discretionary money. We also found that for older clients with less time horizon, higher incomes, the endowment structure really was beneficial. Because you can imagine somebody earning 400,000 or 300,000 or 200,000 large incomes trying to replace that in retirement, they'd had to draw quite a lot from their retirement funds and push them into a high income bracket. And we found the endowment was really did very well in that particular case. But the biggest takeout for us was there was no one size fits all. So when we did this tremendous study, we built this massive model with a whole bunch, and it was a massive actuarial exercise. And when we built this model that ran different scenarios, different outcomes, we got to the conclusion saying that, shish, you really can't take a blanket approach and say most people should be going into vehicle A, B, C, and D. And that's why we built Synergy Financial Planning, whereby we could actually sit with clients, take a step back and say, look, we know the cutoff is the end of Feb. Let's just do a holistic financial plan. Look at all of your cash flows, not just today, but over your livelihood, and let's make an informed decision.
100%. And it goes to show that there's a lot more to be taken into account, not just RA season, but looking at each client individually, what their needs are, and the tax implications of that. Join us again for another Old Mutual Wealth Debrief Exchange.